Can you
The,
see us, brother? Can you see us?
the Cliff's Notes version. Now, mind you, I don't remember the years right now, but I mean the real the abridged version was I had a website that I was supposed to be writing about hip hop and music and all this other type of stuff, and it kind of evolved. Shouts to rockthedub.com. And at a certain point, I thought I was doing too much pro wrestling on the site, so I started a blog, Black Wrestling. It was a blog spot. Blackwrestling.blogspot.com is what it was originally, and it went from like covering it essentially was just all news, everything going on with black pro wrestlers, with some other information sprinkled in there. As my life progressed, I wasn't gonna have the time to keep up the website with other stuff going on in my life. So I actually turned it into a blog, and I used to steal time away from my job. I always talk about the dumpster. There was like the building, there was the parking lot, and then there was like some trees and a dumpster. And I used to steal away time with like I was print.
With you?
I was on the
Fair
job. I
enough.
got no. What I would bring with me was like I would print stuff out from like Wrestling Inc. and all these other sites. Just stuff that I would want to talk about. I would do my little news segments, doing my little recaps of Raw, throw some hip hop tracks in there, real dirty. I know it sounded like whoever. Shouts to everybody whoever listened to it. 'Cause I know it didn't sound great, but it was
He
essential.
was doing the work.
It ended up being the prototype for what years later. I ended up stopping because I had again life changes, different jobs going on. I didn't have any time to do what I was doing the way I was doing it at that point. I was commuting back and forth all day, so I put it on hold. But one day, Brother Fan hit me, and because in that time they had already started a podcast. Shouts out to Where's Buffy, and they was moving.
Mm-hmm.
Interviews, radio spots. They like Buffy was moving at that point. But one thing again, you always get to that point. It's like you're talking about something, but you may work within a team, and everybody in the team ain't trying to talk pro wrestling. It's just them two,
Right.
family ties up there. So Fan hit me one day. He was like, "Look, me and Math, we want to do something with pro wrestling. What are you doing with black wrestling? Are you trying to, if we were to try and figure out how to restart that either with you or with your blessing to do it on our own, what's your thoughts?" And I was like, do I have time? How would this work? Because we had never spoken, mind you. Me, Math, like we hooked up because Math was an aspiring, you hear Math rapping. Math was rapping, but we connected on totally different things, and through the magic of Twitter, we would be talking about pro wrestling every Monday. You know what I mean? So that first episode of Black Wrestling, which I don't think you can hear at this point, was the first time that we spoke outside of however many characters in Twitter. And since then, we've been doing that every Thursday ever since. It's gone from phone calls to Skype to StreamYard. Shouts to Brian H. Waters for figuring that out. What's up?
We did some Zoom episodes first.
We did some Zooms. Yeah, there was a little bit of Zoom in there before we hopped to actually. Zoom was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. It wasn't until the summer of 2020 that we discovered StreamYard. Again, shouts to Brian H. Waters. And I feel like that was probably a groundbreaking moment only because that made us realize, it doesn't have to just be audio. We could set up a YouTube and drop these there and see what happens. And slowly but surely, it's kind of turned into every Thursday, us, Vaughn, people in the chat. We're just having a big conversation about the week with some pro wrestling thrown in there. I mean, but like you said, shirts, nobody was thinking about any of this stuff happening. It was just, we want to talk about pro wrestling, and you the only other nigga that want to talk pro wrestling like we want to talk.
Right.
That's really where, I mean, if we want to be real, that's really where it came from. And it's been 6 years in this current iteration. Although Mimi's been around a year or some change now, going on 2 years about Mania this time. So yeah, it's been slow building, but I think we're probably moving towards our I don't want to, because I don't think we've peaked it up. I think we're kind of moving towards a unique time. I think we're always trying to think of what y'all ain't doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just a matter of ideating and putting it in motion. So it's been dope to build with my brothers and my sister for this time that we've had, and I'm always amazed that people tuned in. To be honest with you,
Yes.
every week, y'all still watching? Like because we be on some shit, you know, Vaughn. But
oh yeah, I definitely know. Yes, it's you know, especially anytime you get the attention of those within the E, anytime they be sending C and D letters. I'm just saying, like not
that's in the past though. That's in the past.
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. So I'm just saying.
Oh
Exactly.
shit.
So
That's old shit. We
yeah,
get
exactly. Yeah, some BS. You know what I mean? But it's whatever. But anyway, like I said, so Mimi, how did you get connected with BR?
Well, somebody hopped into my DMs. You know what I mean? It was trying
Roman?
There's Alan here, but goddamn, what?
Jesus Christ.
What?
Nah. So,
with this guy right here.
How about that? See?
I wish he hopped in my DMs.
I told you.
I wish he hopped in more than a DM.
Anyway.
All right. Yeah.
G show.
So,
G
rated. Yes.
So,
G, like OG.
Exactly.
So I started watching. I was introduced to Black wrestling, like Black wrestling Twitter during the pandemic when everything was shut down and literally everybody was online. And at the time I was working for WWE. And so, most people, they don't try to silence you, but you kind of have to, you kind of take the stance of, you know what, I'm going to do podcasting. But I'm going to try to reserve how I communicate certain things because you don't want to appear to be just dropping dimes or just not do it at all. And so while I was there, another Black podcast asked me to do a show and I said I declined because I just couldn't, but I didn't let them know that I was working there, which is why I had declined. So when I left, I reached back out to them, but I never heard back, which is fine. Because they wanted to do an interview. So I wanted to just kind of like honor that interview or whatever. And so I was in a space where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, right? I wasn't sure if I wanted to write. I didn't know what I wanted to do now that I had more creative freedom. And so just randomly, the BRP account dropped hey, we would love to have you on our show. Was it Fam? It might have been Fam. I can't remember who it was, but they just hit me up and said, hey,
you know who you with? You know these anti-social Negroes.
Yeah, how about that? It probably was Fam. It probably was.
It probably was. I'll tell you how it went. But I'll tell you how it went. And this is why, like, we all have to move intentionally. And I feel like everybody here moves intentionally, and that's why it works. So Fam asked me to come on. I said okay, but I had been in the chat a couple of times, right? Just listening and just been like, it felt like more of a hangout, like Thursday nights, go and talk mad crap in this chat with these dudes, and then they pop it up. Like, not a lot of, this was the first podcast that I saw would pop up the chats. Right. And so when you do that, it forces engagement. Right. And so I was having fun or whatever. Then, I wasn't catching it all the time, but if I was catching a Black wrestling podcast, it was this one and Black Announce Table. And so I said, all right. So I'm just whatever. And then Fam hit me up and said, do you want to do this? We'd love to have you on the show. So I'm on the show and I wasn't sure what to expect. Right. Because I was just like, oh my God, like what's about to happen? Because it's, as you see, the content is the content.
Yeah.
And so I had a really good time. And so then 2 days later, Math popped into the DM and was like, hey, we want to have a conversation. Do you have some time on Monday? And I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to do this again. Like, I felt like I was telling my story a lot. And that's why I don't like doing these road shows. Because it's like you're repeating yourself almost, you know what I mean? For people that don't know who you are. And I wasn't sure if I wanted people to know who I just wasn't. And I was part of another wrestling with a group of guys before. And that was cool, but life happens and it kind of like broke away. And that was that. So in the meeting, we had a conversation. They wanted to bring me on, and I was just like, oh wow. I didn't even think that I did anything. Like I wasn't really. I had a good time, but I thought that's what it was. It was just a good time. You know what I mean? And so, and so, and so,
Wow.
and so, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe. And it's been like what 2016 is when I did that other show. So like 2016. So it'd been a while, like almost 4 or 5 years almost, like, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, let's try it again. And then at that time I got invited to do a couple of articles with Fightful. So I was just like, well, maybe. I was moving at that time, right? And then I started a job, and then just things keep going like this, things just keep going like this. And so at the end of the day, it was a year of getting to know everybody individually. And again, I move very intentional, and each person eventually, now we're here at a year later, and it feels like these people are a part of my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will not go to the DMV without hitting up
You can't.
anybody. You know what I mean? You got to check in all the
We don't
time.
live in the DMV.
So
That's fact.
yes, you do.
Right.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, in fact, you got 3 people from